to welcome everyone to this interview edition of 7 Minute Takes. And we are very fortunate to be sitting down with the writer, director, and several cast members of a upcoming horror thriller called The Transfiguration. The Transfiguration itself was an official selection at the Cannes Film Festival, and it's writer-director Michael O'Shea's debut feature. And the movie itself follows a troubled teen, Milo, who hides his fascination with vampire lore. When he meets an equally alienated Sophie, the two form a bond that begins to challenge Milo's dark obsession, luring his fantasy into reality. And shot primarily in New York City, it's a very, very timely and I think thought-provoking film. And again, we are very fortunate to be sitting down with writer, director Michael O'Shea. Michael, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good. Fun. Talking about the movie, always a fun thing to do.
Yeah, it's again, I think a very timely entry into the horror sweepstakes. It's opening in New York on this Friday, April 7th. And in LA on the 21st, and I believe it will have a wide opening viewer on demand at the end of the month. Am I correct?
No, it's going to go to more cities on the 28th, more movie theaters,
Oh.
And then it's on demand is going to happen, I believe, in August, unless I don't know something, because I don't always know everything. No, I believe on the 28th it's going to go to another 7 cities, and it may keep platforming from there. I don't think the on demand is going to happen until August, unless something changed that I don't know about, which is always possible, by the way.
Well, sure, but I would say that's actually great news for anyone who's looking to check this film out. I think it would behoove you, wonderful listeners, to go check this film out in the theater.
Oh.
And
thank you. Yes, me too. I like theaters, so.
That was the thing I was thinking in terms of the setup and the principal photography and cinematography of the pieces. That this is a big screen film.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time and energy on the sound design. Which, when you go to a home television, it's going to get crunched a lot. I spent so much time and energy on the surround sound, and also Margaret did a lot of work on the score, which is very, very bassy and creepy. And it's a really nice thing to see in a theater. I agree. Which us independent filmmakers, theatrical is less and less of an option for us as computers, video on demand, the streaming services kind of have started taking over the business. And it's really, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to sit in Cannes or to sit at we just premiered at South by Southwest at the Alamo theaters, and it was just so wonderful to hear the movie loud in an Alamo Draft House. It was amazing. It was just such a great experience for me. If you can, if it plays one of your cities, please go see the movie. I would love for the movie to be seen that way.
Yeah, I second those sentiments very strongly. And Michael, just give us a little bit of insight into the genesis of this. How did it come together?
Sure.
As mentioned, it's your debut feature, and it's really a interesting and I think substantive take on the horror genre. How did this all come around?
I mean, I was writing. I just failed to make money to raise money for a slasher film. I decided I was writing horror a few years ago, and because I decided I was more likely to get. It was very cynical. I decided I was more likely to get financed if I wrote horror, because I don't know famous people. You know what I mean? Then when I started writing horror, I was a huge horror fan as a teenager, so it suddenly brought up a lot of teenage feelings, which ended up kind of seeping into The Transfiguration, which is kind of both a teen film and a horror film. And, basically I had failed raising money for this, larger slasher film. I was trying to think about an affordable way to make a movie, a cheaper way to make a movie. I decided that the way to do it would be to shoot kind of live locations throughout New York City, making almost like a semi-documentary where my fictional characters are sort of interacting in a real city with real people. And so then it became what is the movie going to be? and a friend mentioned that their friend's kid was getting bullied a lot in school because he was obsessed with vampires. And I was like, oh, that's really good. So I basically started building this character in my head of a character that, believes he is becoming a vampire and who may be becoming a vampire. And I instead of being like 8 or 9 years old, I made him 14 years old, and I said I was going to be this one summer over the course of one summer in New York, and then he meets a girl, which is at the beginning of essentially the setup of the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because in some ways it is very much a coming of age story. It's kind of as you mentioned, kind of a teen romance in some regard.
Yes, a very weird teen romance. I mean, the two films that I bring up in reference to this kind of merger of horror or darkness and sweetness and love is Heavenly Creatures and Let the Right One In. Which are both films that kind of bring up these kind of ideas and emotions in a way, but while having a lot of darkness around them as well.
Yeah, it touches on again a number of wider themes, but it also is, like you say, an intriguing take on the vampire mythos. Perhaps plays more as a psychological thriller than perhaps a supernatural one, but there's some element of both going on there. And
absolutely.
And I think interestingly too, speaking of kind of the nexus of things that are going on in the wider horror culture, the film comes at a time when we've seen the triumph of Jordan Peele's Get Out. Your film here features Eric Ruffin. He's a young African-American actor. It takes place in a housing project area in New York, and it touches on some of the themes that are kind of going on in our society about the role of black youth, the coming of age of black youth, some of the societal issues that we're seeing played out in both the headlines and in the theater. And again, coming about a month or so after the introduction of Get Out, what kind of attracted you to that particular aspect of the story? What were the decision-making process about setting the film where you set it and choosing the actor that you did?
I mean, once I figured out I'm doing a portrait film about a kid who believes he's becoming a vampire. Setting came pretty soon after it. I grew up in Rockaway, which is where the film is shot and set, and I grew up pretty much around right around where the film is shot. So it was when I started thinking, I really like 70s and 80s horror movies that also use like live locations, and I really love George Romero, and George Romero was a director, and a lot of the 70s and 80s horror directors were directors where there's strong political themes going underneath the movie. While they're being successful horror movies or successful dramas, there's a political subtext, and I wanted to do that as well. And I began reading Dracula, and I kept thinking about Renfield. And Renfield creates the food chain in his cell. And basically he gets one animal, and then he gets another animal that eats it. He takes care of it, and he gets another animal that eats that animal, and basically creates the food chain with this inference that the vampire is at the top of the food chain. And I started thinking about capitalism as practiced in America without barely any social safety nets, and how we're all essentially encouraged to become predators on each other, and how that actually works in America and in a city. And I started deciding that I wanted to make a film where there may be an overlaying theme about how we're forced to be predators on each other, and how we live in sort of a heartless society that makes us all sociopaths to some degree just to get by. And how someone who is kind of at the bottom of our economic food chain of predators, how it might be nice for him to think of himself as being on the top of the food chain in the truest way of being a vampire. Because a vampire, the whole Renfield's whole point in Dracula is, that vampires are above humans. And how, that must feel very empowering to someone who actually, is very, very, very much powerless. So that's like part of the giant jumble of thoughts that went into the setting and a lot of the ideas that are going on inside the movie, and also a lot of the speech speeches inside the movie. You know, there's that point where Lewis says to Milo, whatever you think you're doing, there's people out there closing their eyes to it, doing so much worse every day. And that's something that, you know, that's sort of the writer in me coming out a little with that you know, political theme going on underneath.
Yeah, and again, it's coupled with a very nuanced performance by Eric Ruffin.
He gives a great performance. And by the way, Eric Chloe just came in, so that was a good lead-in. Okay, you're now on speaker. Yeah.
Yes, we can. Good afternoon. This is Jason Stewart from 7 Minute Takes and Dark Media Online. Once again, for my listeners, we're sitting down with the writer, director, and stars of an upcoming new horror thriller, The Transfiguration. And I believe we have Eric on the line.
Yes, hi.
Eric, wonderful to talk to you. Just want to compliment you on what was a very, very unique and nuanced performance in The Transfiguration. How did you get prepared for the role?
Thank you. We had rehearsals 2 weeks prior to actually filming, so me and Michael kind of collaborated. It was really a joint effort, which I appreciate Michael allowing me to do so I contribute. And he gave me a list of classic vampire movies. Some of them mentioned in our movie, like Martin, Nosferatu, Let the Right One In. So I just kind of watched those and just use those movies and my talking to Michael to just create a character. And we kind of sat down and basically made Milo.
Yeah, it really shows the care and the craft, and of course for everyone who is a vampire buff specifically, you'll hear some of the great classics checked when you just mentioned right now. But also you bring to the character this kind of a creative side, a kind of inner life, which I think really shows up on the screen. But also it kind of gets a feel for who you are in the movie. You know, you're kind of an artistic guy. It's not just all splatter, blood, and horror. It really is a very thoughtful character that we see. All those journaling parts of it were very interesting. How did you guys come up with that idea about him having a journal?
Well, I think Michael, he knew someone, he knew a kid that was really into vampires, and it's kind of something that he does. So he took that idea and he ran with it and created a kid who had vampire tendencies.
Yeah, there's an element of you almost can kind of see the kid headed in a direction where it's if he did this a little differently, this would be a really cool, creative idea. but he goes to a dark place, and how did you get prepared for that? How did you deal with some of the darker subject matter of the film?
I just tried to think about because there's really no I don't know any people in this world like Milo. So in creating the character, I had to just kind of pretend as if he was real, and it may sound crazy to kind of talk to him and figure out what his thought process would be and how he feels about certain things that goes on, because there's not much research you can do on a character like this, because he's very, very, very unique. So it just we had to be spontaneous and just in a way go with the flow and try and figure out what type of person he is.
Yeah, well, again, the prep and the setup really enhance what you do. I think you really have a performance to be proud of, and I'd be neglectful if I didn't mention your co-star Chloe Levine, who also is a breakout in this, and the chemistry between the two of you really shows on the screen. What was it like working with Chloe, and how did working with her help the process?
It was great working with Chloe. She's here now. She can tell you a little bit more about it, but it was we kind of fed off of each other's energy, which was helpful, because in a movie like this, it's you really need all the help you can to accurately portray what Michael was trying to go for.
Well, Chloe, glad to have you on the line. Welcome to 7 Minute Takes, and was very, very impressed with your performance as well. Can you give a little background on how you got prepared for the film?
Hi, yeah, thank you. For this character, we in rehearsals, we talked about, Mike referred to Sophie a lot as like a vat of emotions and kind of like this bruise, she's constantly feeling things. So for me, I had to like dive into things that would make me feel a similar way as Sophie does that happened in my life, and then layer her situation on top of things that I knew, you know?
Yeah, it really shows. She's got a bit of a troubled storyline herself. The connection between the characters kind of makes sense when you kind of see them in the context of the film, that they kind of find each other. What kind of did you do any additional research on kind of the things that were going on with your character? How did you get the mood right for kind of what she's going through?
Well, like as far as like the cutting and stuff, I did do some research, and I know people who do cut, so I was able to talk to them about it, and really just like talking with Mike about the character, about Sophie, was really all that was needed.
Well, again, the elements that both you and Eric bring in really are unique. I was trying to think of the last time I saw leads of your guys' age group, and I mean that in the way that you guys really show a lot of depth and emotion in these performances, and for kind of performers in your stage of your career, it's really something to be proud of. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys do a lot more work in the silver screen area.
Thank you so much.
That means a lot. Thank you.
And Michael, in terms of the production of the film, you mentioned about the music, the film score by Pharmacon, and kind of what went into that. How did that come about? It really does do a lot to make the film's atmosphere kind of pop.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Under the Skin, and I read about Under the Skin, and I read how he didn't use a traditional movie composer, he used an indie musician, and I thought that was a really great out-of-the-box way to approach film composing, where you wouldn't be working with someone who may be too reliant on tropes. I loved how Under the Skin had a really unique soundscape, and how the composer kind of worked with just kind of like the sounds of the movie. And so I decided I would also try to find, instead of a traditional film composer, just an indie musician whose work I liked, who I thought could do something similar to what they did, but also different for my movie. And I'm a huge music fan. I'm a big fan of Sacred Bones Records, and I was a big fan of Pharmacon. So I reached out to Sacred Bones Records, and I said, can you, put me in touch with her, get your email. And, that was it. I sent her the script, and she said, yeah, I'm interested in composing a movie, and it was a great collaboration. We kind of, you sit together with her, you watch the movie, you say what you want when. You don't really say what you want musically, you just kind of say, mood, use words like mood and color to describe it. And she takes notes, and she comes back, and, if you're lucky, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was lucky. She came back with just an amazing score that I was really, really happy with. And she worked really nicely with Cole Anderson, who's our sound designer, who's a very experienced sound designer. And I think that was part of what made it work. It was Margaret's first movie, but it's Cole. God only knows how many movies he's done as in the sound department. So having a really experienced person like him kind of offset the fact that for Margaret this was a brand new experience, and it just came out. I'm so proud of the sound design and the score.
Yeah.
And, really happy with it. It was really cool.
Yeah, and for genre fans who are the bulk of this audience, if you liked what was going on musically in Under the Skin, you'll see the same kind of connection with what's going on here with the Transfiguration. Once again,
thank you.
Yes, it's really true. Really, well designed, wonderful cinematography, photography, great performances. Once again, the Transfiguration is opening in New York on Friday, this Friday the 7th, and in Los Angeles on the 21st of April. As Michael mentioned, hopefully we'll be going wide in a city near you soon. And
check out our website and our Facebook. You can find us the normal ways. TheTransfigurationFilm.com, and on Facebook you type in The Transfiguration, you'll find us. And that'll have all the information about our cities coming out.
Yeah, and the links at the post that will be dropping with this interview will also contain the contact information about the film, how you can find out more if it's playing in a city near you. Before we wrap up, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask each one of you about a favorite vampire film. Michael, do you have a favorite vampire film?
Who's first?
If you'd like to answer which yours favorite, and we'll just we'll work through.
Oh gosh. You think I'd have an answer for this by now? I'm gonna. Can I do a tie? Let the right one in. Shadow of a Vampire.
Okay, good tie. Good tie. Chloe, do you have a favorite vampire film?
Yeah, my favorite is Let the Right One In too, actually.
And Eric, do you have a one? I'm sure you prepped on a lot of them, but do you have a favorite one now?
The original Dracula was really cool to me.
Oh, okay, a classic Universal horror lover. Well, can't beat Bela Lugosi. And again, Transfiguration opening in New York this Friday on the 7th, opening in Los Angeles on the 21st. If you're in those cities, go out and see this movie. I can give it a very high recommendation on my end, and we know how we pick through the horror movies here. We're picky, but the Transfiguration is one you definitely don't want to miss. It's a horror movie for our times. Again, Michael, Eric, Chloe, thank you so much for your time. We wish you continued success, and please keep checking in with us here at 7 Minute Takes. We'd like to hear about things in the future, and again, we hope you the best success with the Transfiguration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and once again, this has been a special interview edition of 7 Minute Takes. We want to thank Michael, Eric, and Chloe for their time, and keep track. Like I said, there'll be more information about the film coming soon. And once again, this is your host, Jason Malcolm Stewart, and I will catch you on the flip side.